3, 2, 1.
Yippee-Ki-Yay, mother.
Welcome to the party, pal!
Welcome to another edition, a special edition of Yippee-Ki-Yay Mother Podcast. This is the Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny edition, or How a Movie Ruined John's Childhood. What's going on, Mother Podcasters?
Whoa.
Hey, guys.
Hello.
What's up?
Hey, I just want to give you all a warning. We have a very bad storm passing through my area.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And when we get high winds, I usually use my power, so I don't anticipate being here the entire time.
Yeah,
But
it's
I'm going to
picking
stay
up.
with you.
It might cause problems with your camera and your microphone.
And you might.
It
Yeah.
might. I think
Okay.
it may cause power with my entire image.
Well, we'll see what happens. We'll do this quick then.
Must have been a wicked storm last week.
Yeah.
All right, so here's what we got. I spun the Wheel of Destiny last week and got to pick this week's film, and I picked Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Because you knew your brother
Mainly
would like
because John said he would never want to see this film because it would ruin his childhood.
I never said that. You said that.
I think you implied that.
I never said it would
anybody,
ruin my childhood.
Anybody hear him say that?
I don't know if the phrase "ruin my childhood" was there, but it was
You
definitely.
two go out this last weekend? Did you and Chris go out this past weekend?
Yes, we might have
know
had
it.
a little meeting.
So this is a bit. You guys are doing a bit
No
now
bit,
that you guys
no
worked
bit.
on.
Chris, we got to acknowledge that Chris fell on his face this week. I mean, let's just get that
Yeah.
out of the way. I hope you're
That's
okay.
the dial of concrete.
Yeah, I literally just stepped off the side of a curb, and I thought there was more regular ground there, and there wasn't. So I went crack.
That's what happens when
you
old.
couldn't
Lucky-
say
I stepped off the curb to push a child out of the way of a car. Like, give it some drama or something.
Yeah,
No,
and please
but-
mention the amount of alcohol.
It looks painful.
Zero.
That's This
the
is what
saddest
happens
part.
when old people try to walk around on things, and why
Yeah.
Indiana Jones is climbing rocks and never fell. I mean, okay, so we're going to talk about the Dial of
Jumping
Destiny.
on trains.
Chris,
gonna have
that's not good digital de-aging.
No, we're going to have you need some of that on your face. So we're going to have a little free flow conversation about the Dial of Destiny, because really it's all about John's opinion on this one, I think. And then we'll do a round of what you watch, and then next week we're going to do the Indian film that we've been waiting to do. Drew, what's the name of the film we're going to do?
Mughal-e-Azam.
Brought to
Which
us
has
by
already been
Wolverine,
a
one of
10-minute
our.
show.
What's that?
It's already been a 10-minute review.
It has, but Wolverina really wants us, the group,
Yeah.
to do the film. So I think we owe that to her, because
Yeah,
she's
I
been.
would love to do it. She's been a great fan.
She
and
has
a
been.
friend, even.
She has been. So I'm looking forward to that one, that 3.5 hour long movie. All right, so let's get right into this. John, you're the man in the spotlight here, because I think had everyone else, had you guys seen this before we brought this to the table?
Yes.
Yes.
Did you see it in the movie theater or on stream?
No.
I saw it.
I
in the-
saw it on Disney Plus.
Chris,
I
you
saw
saw it
it
at the
on
theater?
Disney Plus too. I just saw it now. The
So Sean,
reviews
you
were
just
so
saw it,
bad.
and John,
The
you
reviews
streamed
were so
it. You
bad,
didn't,
I wasn't gonna
no
see
way
it.
you were going to go to the movie theater to see this one, right?
I had no plans of seeing this movie ever.
Okay, so let's get right into it, John. What'd you think?
Okay, so the best way to phrase this is, Drew brought this up last week. I didn't despise it as much as I thought I would. There were a couple things in it that I liked. The majority of it I did not like. And when it was over, I felt a little sad. I think the trilogy ended after Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I think it should have ended then. I think this was a money grab. Watching Harrison Ford at 80 years old, running around and taking this character that I love, and it wasn't the same. It just wasn't Indiana Jones. It was just an old
Sure,
guy.
he was. He looked exactly the same.
He,
the beginning.
yeah, he looked exactly the same. That he needed to be rescued. He needed to, he couldn't run. Everyone was faster than him, and I get that because of his age. Now, I will say this: I thought the most Indiana Jones thing in the whole movie was the first 20 minutes, which
that was good.
I actually liked. I did not like, I thought the CGI was a little rubbery with his face. I thought, look, this movie had a budget of, I think, $229 million. The original Raiders had a budget of $20 million. And Raiders did almost everything with practical effects, where this movie relied heavily on CGI. And that's why that train scene was in the dark, why, she's chasing after the plane on a motorcycle in the rain. That I did not like. But I have to say that first 20 minutes I liked. It was the most Raiders out of the entire movie. And then from there, it just kind of went downhill. I thought Teddy was ridiculous. He was short round, but he could fly a plane, even though he's never flew a plane before.
Yeah, it's easy.
What?
Teddy was the little kid.
Yeah, Teddy was the little kid.
Well, I mean, flying is actually easy. It's landing that can be challenging.
Yeah, it's easy.
Fortunately, there was a real pilot in the
attest to
plane,
that.
too.
Oh, my bat phone is ringing. When she says to him, "Can you fly a Cessna?" And he goes, "I've never flown one before." Then she says, this is great writing, by the way, "You've never flown a plane before." So she asks if he can fly a Cessna before she says, "You've never flown a plane before." That was stupid. I thought the MacGuffin, the Dial of Destiny,
That's not really a MacGuffin. That's not a MacGuffin.
it is a MacGuffin because they had to find one thing to find another thing to
Well,
find
but
another.
that also figured
it out.
into the plot pretty heavily.
Yeah, I thought the
Yeah,
plot.
it matters what it is in terms of the
Right.
story.
That's not a MacGuffin.
It does.
but
It
okay.
does. But to get there, I just thought, listen, it just wasn't.
What do they call these movies where you have to go one piece after another? It's not a treasure hunt. It's a.
What do you mean one set piece?
Yeah,
after
it's,
There's
another?
a term for
no,
it
it's
when
one
people used to
task
do it at
after the
parties.
other.
Yeah.
To get to the final task.
Yeah.
I thought there were things in this movie that, and again, I know this is you guys. You think I complain too much about it, but I never expected in an Indiana Jones movie to hear someone call someone else a cracker, which the CIA agent did. You never learn anything about her, the one who gets killed, who's I guess a CIA agent. I'm not even that sure if she was a CIA agent, but the other agents kill innocent people, and she pulls a gun on him, but she's okay with it because she's going with him, and she dies, and you don't learn anything about her at all. And then there's a crack in there.
Hold on. I mean, she's the only one that isn't a Nazi.
Well,
So-
okay, but
But I mean, they were gonna get rid of her anyway. We
well,
didn't
okay,
necessarily
but
know
you
that,
watched
but-
them kill the other people and still went along with them. So
Well, it's still CIA. I mean, they suck.
So I thought that was kind of silly. I thought it was just for me personally. It was just one other good thing. Okay, the John Williams score.
Oh, sure.
You can't help but when he first shows up with the leather jacket and the hat. I mean, and then you hear the music. You can't help but feel something for that, and I did. But things happen that don't make any sense. Sala shows up out of thin air to be there right at the right amount of time. The Nazis always know where to go because at one point in the boat, he looked through binoculars and figured out where he was going. That's the kind of stuff that just bugged the hell out of me. Now, I know that this movie had a lot of reshoots. I know that they changed a lot of stuff in it. So I don't know it just seemed a little convoluted for me. And the woman, I
Fleabag.
Helena, yeah, Helena, who was in Fleabag. I can't say I hated her, but her character, she leaves him to die, right, in the beginning.
And then she cares so much.
Yeah, right. She cares so much. The godfather that she loves, her father's best friend, which, by the way, was never referenced in any other movie except for the last one with what's his name, John Hurt, and leaves him to die. And then I didn't buy because they're trying to make her like she's really not that bad, but she did a lot of really bad stuff to him, and I didn't like that. It made him. Frankly, I saw him as weak and pathetic throughout this movie, where she was super smart. She was better at everything than he was. And I have no problem with that, but not to the point where you have to. They made him just look pathetic. I didn't like that.
He was like me.
What?
He was like me.
Yeah, he was like you, Sean. And that made me sad, okay? It just did. because I think about, and I kept thinking about the first movie, and I know you can't compare the two because of the age difference with Harrison Ford, but just the tone of the movie, the pace of the movie. Marion, like Marion is a strong character in Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? But she never announced it that she's a strong, beautiful. I don't remember what the line was, but it was like she didn't have to announce it. You just knew she was, and that's a problem with not just. I don't blame her. That's just the script, and that's something that they're trying to push. And I guess I get it, but I just don't think you have to. You don't have to knock down a character to build a character up, and they kept doing that in this movie, and I think that's what bothered me. And the other thing that really bothered me was at the end when he gets shot. Like, at one time he's on death's door, and the other time he's fighting people. He's jumping out of a parachute. He's doing all this stuff with a bullet that's in his left side or right side that probably should have killed him. And then the final thing was, and I would love someone to explain it to me, and this is a spoiler, but he wants to stay and die in ancient, wherever he was. Mm-hmm. And
because
he punches him.
He's living in history.
Punches him, knocks him out.
Yep.
They get back to the present. They fly to wherever they're going. Then they fly to New York, and he ends up in his bed in New York. So he was out the whole time.
Happens, yeah.
No, I don't think
Maybe she just kept punching him.
Okay. To me, that's just like, and I
don't think he was out the whole time, John. I think that the idea is they obviously, she knocks him out. He's obviously weakened, as you said. He's been shot.
He had a bullet in the shoulder.
And he's been, put through the ringer over the last few days. I think she knocks him out. They fly through the thing, but I don't think he was unconscious like all the way to New York.
Well, they certainly made it implied
the movie does play out as if that's so. John.
Well, he was probably drifting in and out of
I don't think it makes sense, but
Yeah,
the way
so
he wakes up and kind of looks
I mean,
around.
We're gonna.
I get it.
Wait a minute. That's the reality we're gonna question whether he was asleep or
I'm
not.
just saying it doesn't. That doesn't make
When he's
any
jumping
sense
on the
at
train. I mean,
all.
look at Chris's face. Chris had a slight little accident, right?
Yeah.
Look at
His
the
wife
shit that
had
was
to
going
drive
on
him
the
in.
top of that train. Toby, what's his name? What's Toby's? The actor.
Not Toby Hall. Is it Toby Hall?
No, that's my friend Toby.
Toby.
The guy.
Toby.
I don't know his name.
He played Capote. What's
I
his name?
know who he
Okay.
is, but I can't.
Anyway,
Philip
Toby
Seymour
Jones.
Hoffman.
Toby Jones.
that's the other one, right?
It's Toby Jones.
Toby Jones.
Yeah.
There were no bruises on anybody flopping around that
No,
train.
okay,
and you're
but
going
the
to worry
last
about
thing,
what happens
the
at
last
the end.
thing I want to say before I totally, again, I did not like this movie.
Sorry about my lighting. My lighting went a little crazy.
That's okay. I will say that it was kind of sweet at the end when Karen Allen comes back and they
She sniffs
reference
his ear. I love
they
when she
reference
sniffed
the
his
first
ear.
movie,
Yeah.
which is the kiss, right?
Yeah, very
That,
sweet.
I thought was kind of a sweet thing to end the movie. But again, I will say that the perfect ending to Indiana Jones was when he, with Sean Connery, Sala,
Yes.
and Brody, rode off to the sunset. That's where it should have ended. And this movie just took what I think is one of the most iconic heroes, with Superman, Batman, whatever. I just found it sad. When it was over, I was sad.
So who had the cash grab? Not Harrison Ford. He doesn't
Harrison
need the
Ford
money.
got $20 million for that.
But he doesn't need the money. Where do you think the
He
cash?
said,
grab?
"I don't
You
want to
think
do the
studio?
movie unless I have a good script." Are you going to tell me, Ralph, that was a good script?
No. I'm going to tell you right now that I had a much different reaction seeing it the second time than I did the first time. First time I was caught up in the fact that it was Indiana Jones on a movie screen, and I kind of let a lot. This time I watched it, I'm like, oh my God, it's terrible. It's terrible. The writing, you're right. The writing is terrible. The character,
The writing is bad.
Forcing that little kid in the situation. Her relationship with that kid's never really explained. Her relationship with the criminal who just
Right.
disappeared in the middle
The
of this
gangster.
thing. I get all that, and I agree that but it's one of those things. It's like it's still fun because it's still fun. I think the movie should have started at the apartment at the beginning when the hippies are playing the Beatles song, and forget
a
all
good
that.
one.
Which is the one thing you said was the one Indiana Jones, which is the plunder
the
train
opening.
that they were the plunder train, right?
Yeah.
Just start with him in the apartment as an old guy, and talk and deal with what was going on. I thought if they had started there and maybe flash back to what happened on that Nazi train, Now you're in the moment. You're in the moment. Like he's old. He's 69.
You know, that's
and
interesting because maybe that's interesting because I didn't look at it that way, but maybe because I did like that scene.
Yes.
And maybe they set the bar a little high with that scene at the beginning.
But even that scene was like ridiculously goofy, right? And
Well-
especially the running on the train. That
Right.
was obviously
Right.
CGI.
Yeah.
Whatever. The de-aging didn't bother me at all. Hearing his old voice and his young,
Well, that's the
that
other
didn't bother
thing.
me at all.
The
But the
80-year-old
bomb
voice.
that drops and just sits there, he's hanging
Yeah.
on. All those things and he's eating with all the other Nazis, so nobody see. That was just goofy. But it set up the Toby character, his friend, and they had to do it. But if it just started right there with him falling asleep on that, the Barker Lounge or whatever he was on, the Lazy Boy, I thought that would have been better. It's because this same guy directed Logan, right? Which
Right.
was that other kind of subversive superhero film. where
Taking a young character,
Old
making
man
him
hero.
older,
Right. And I just, why not play with
resentful.
it? And then, of course, they have to. He's got to do all the punching and all the things that we know that he, supposed to be able to do. I don't know. I hated it the second time I saw it. I'm not
Oh
going
wow.
But,
Wow.
Well, one other thing, when he wakes up in that bed, he's still wanted for murder,
wow.
and everyone that
Again.
could clear him's dead.
You're right.
Because Helena didn't see it.
And the death of the Nazi characters, like the bad, he died twice, basically. The first time he got hit in the face with.
Well,
that's
that-
what I mean. Look at Chris's face. That guy got hit with a goddamn, whatever that was.
I
And
think
he's
That was to
would be a
refill the
fatal,
train, yeah.
right,
fatal
but
problem.
he had no scars. There was nothing that
Right.
and their death was kind of like I wanted that the redneck Nazi guy, the guy
Yeah.
that was learning the German
The
language.
guy from
So
Justified.
when he goes back in
And
1930s
from
to
Logan
Germany,
and lots of stuff. Yeah.
right? He was like that. Their death was meaningless. It was boring.
Yeah,
But I'll say this, one last thing, and then you guys jump in. I did like the time travel thing back to Rome. I just thought that was
Syracuse.
super cool. I was worried, and Chris and I talked about this weekend, that they set up that he was going to go back to get his kid,
yeah.
so he wouldn't
yeah.
die in the war.
Right.
And they set that up pretty good on the boat there before Antonio Banderas dies a horrible, stupid
Right.
death too. It's like, and only one guy in that underwater thing, his air got cut off. That one with the ripped abs that she was
Yeah.
staring at. Right. Just weird. It was just uneven.
yeah.
Yeah.
But when I saw it in the theater, I had
Uneven?
a different feeling when I saw it in the theater. It's weird.
Yeah, I was way more positive on this from the theater than I was on rewatching it.
Yeah.
I think my biggest complaint is there's a couple, but I think it was just too long. You talk about it going,
2.5
hear
hours.
that.
hey, you have to do X to do X to do X, to get
Yeah,
to
it's not Indian.
A to B to C.
It should have
And-
been.
Indiana.
What they could have done is I feel like they could have cut out one of those entire set pieces. You know what I mean? And just shortened it up. I agree with Ralph. I mean, I feel like everything should have been shorter. Like I liked the little car chase, like when he's on that little 3-wheeled machine, like
Yeah.
through the
Tuk tuk
through the
or
street.
whatever.
Yeah, the tuk tuk.
Duke.
And but once again, it was about twice as long as it should have
Yeah,
been.
Those
I
things are
like-
really resilient too, aren't they?
Apparently so. Yeah. But I there was a lot of things I did like, and like I said, more than anything, and I know I'd mentioned this before, like when I kept thinking to myself, "Don't blow it, don't blow it." I really thought they were going to do a thing where we were going to get a little Shia LaBeouf cameo. I thought that's what was going to happen, and when it didn't, it made her appearance, Karen Allen's appearance at the end, really, really sweet,
Meaningful.
but bittersweet. I mean, really heartbreaking. I found it to be, because but I understood why Indy would be like, I'm just gonna stay here. There's nothing for me back there.
Yeah.
He's literally like, he's retired out of his second-rate job at Hunter College or
And he's
whatever.
a bad professor. He's really boring when he's not shooting people and punching them.
Well, the kids
obviously,
didn't care.
Yeah.
The kids
Whatever
didn't.
mojo he had from the first two.
Remember
where
the eyelids where the girl
Yeah.
had the I love
Girl
you or
from
whatever?
the girls were in love with him and stuff. That's obviously past, right? And he's burned out. And it's like they give a little happy retirement for him, and he's like, "Hey, thanks for putting up with me." And you don't know if it's a kind of a situation where he's retiring on his own volition, or he's being kind of pushed out the door. Do you know what I mean? So I understand why he wants to just stay there. You know why? I mean, his son is dead. His he and his wife are getting divorced. There's nothing for him there, he's old. A lot of his friends are gone,
But they forced his Egyptian friend in there. I get why he was there.
Oh, of course.
I
it's
understand.
Saha. We all want to see.
I know, but
What's that called? Fan service.
Yes.
Is that what that was? Was that fan service?
Yeah,
Oh,
that is, of
Yeah,
course.
that's what it is. It's hey,
Short round is back.
we're gonna
different name.
shoehorn. Yeah, and that's the other thing. I agree. Teddy, I was like, this guy's even more annoying than Short Round was.
And that's a really cruel death he did for the one guy, chaining him into that
Oh,
thing
yeah.
underground.
That guy.
Yeah.
That guy. What do you mean cruel death? That guy was a
That
dick.
guy was terrible. He got what he
Yeah, but still, that's
He's
mean.
a giant.
A
Yeah,
kid,
the giant guy.
for a kid to do that.
He's a Nazi. Who
Indy
cares?
would have been fun if he
cares?
did it.
Yeah, the handcuff him. That was great. Yeah.
I think it would have been funnier if the kid got through that and this guy couldn't, so you knew he would drown. But,
Hey guys, I need to pause this just for a second. I'm sorry, I'm breaking up the free flow, but give me 1 minute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
Do you have a
just
craft
talk about Chris.
appointment?
Let's talk about Chris, you
Just
guys.
walk away. Let's keep the Hong
Wow.
Kong.
just
skyline
walk
up
away,
there.
walk away.
All right. So Drew, you've been. So you didn't see it in the theater. You saw it straight.
It was funny because I don't go to the movies nearly as often as I did before COVID, and I stop me if I talked about this last time. I don't think I did. I was listening to a show where they were talking about what's the last movie you saw in the theater before COVID, and what's the first movie that you saw when you went back. And did I talk about this?
No.
Okay, so the last movie I saw was in February, and it was the Harley Quinn movie. And these people on this podcast, they were talking about how they went back, and like one of them saw Tenet. I don't even know if that really counts because clearly we weren't safe enough to go back and do that, and they made a crack at it anyway. And a lot of them were talking about the movies that they went back and they saw in 2021. I did not go back into the theater to see a movie. I checked it. I didn't realize it was that long until Top Gun Maverick in July of 2022.
Wow.
So I got and I didn't do that
I
on
saw
purpose.
a few
That's
before
just
that, yeah.
yeah, that's just the way it happened. And so, this movie coming out, I think I like as soon as the first trailer was great. And I thought this is not going to live up to this trailer because it's not a Spielberg movie. It's James Mangold, who I like, but he's not Spielberg doing Indiana Jones. And I just never really felt I have to see it in the theater. Like if somebody had said to me, "Hey, do you want to go see it?" I mean, yeah, sure. But it was never like I wanted to see Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 1, or whatever. But I think I never felt the pull. So when I saw it on Disney Plus. So I watched it at home, and I thought it was okay. Some of it I really liked. The de-aging stuff. It's one of those things like it gets better and better, but it's still really distracting. And that's the first time that I've seen Indiana Jones, like all of us, on screen since 2008, and he looks a little rubbery. So I am confident that's the best. Like Bradley Cooper's old man makeup in Maestro is remarkable. That doesn't mean that it makes the movie
Is
good or
that
bad. It's
de-aged
just
or is that makeup?
no, it's physical makeup, and it looks remarkable. But the thing that the train sequence is people have made the argument that it shouldn't have even started there, and I get that. I would have missed the bomb scene. That felt very Indiana Jones. I loved when the anti-aircraft gun gets knocked over and starts shooting the Nazis off the train. I thought that was really funny. I thought it was really well
You've seen
done.
the
And
like seeing Nazis killed.
yeah, anytime Nazis die, what fun. But the weird thing for me was it didn't, never mind criticisms of the script and other things just as a movie, it didn't feel like Spielberg because it wasn't Spielberg, but also because it wasn't the same department heads and the same people that he worked with. He worked with most of the same people. Like Michael Kahn didn't edit this. It didn't have the same production designer. I think only 2 DPs shot the other movie. So this was somebody new. And I appreciated that it wasn't trying to ape that style, but there are certain things in the movie I was like, well, if Spielberg had done that scene, like the horse in the subway, stuff like that, I just think it would have been better. It would have been more exciting. But my big thing was, as we've talked about already, I didn't know where it was going to go at the end. I really didn't know when they're in the airplane and they're going to go and it's like, all right, I guess we're going through time because it's an Indiana Jones movie and there's always something supernatural at the end that happens or could happen. And I didn't know what they were going to do. And I really liked the way that they resolved it. And I really liked that at the end of the movie that he was invited back to life, basically, by Marion Ravenwood, and that was very sweet, and the callback was very sweet. It reminded me in Godzilla -1, a main character is asked, like, is the war over? Are you ready to move past this? And Indiana Jones is stuck in the death of his son, which fortunately we didn't have to go back and visit in time. Nobody wants to work with Shia LaBeouf anyway. But I thought it was okay, and I had heard all kinds of stuff about what the ending of the movie was going to be, and she's going to go back through all the movies, and she's going to get all the relics, or wear his hat, or some nonsense. I mean, at the end of the movie, the very last shot of the movie is he put his hat out because he's retired, and then he grabs it again anyway. I know they won't make another one. I don't want them to make another one, but I don't mind leaving that the character, he can come back to life with Marion, but he doesn't really have to say, I'll never have another adventure. It's kind of dumb. They should have made 30 of these movies. They should have made one of these like every year or two.
Oh, like
It should have been a James Bond movie.
Wasn't that the idea at the beginning?
I think it was. I think
Yeah.
it was, and it's too bad that they didn't pull it off, and instead they made the like handsome and inert Indiana Jones Chronicles, or whatever that's called, which there's I think only 700 hours of, and you can watch those on Disney Plus also. And also the other thing is Indiana Jones, they're great action movies, right? Mission Impossible 7 did a number of things that other movies did this summer, and they did them better. The train sequence in Dead Reckoning, it's genuinely unbelievable.
Yeah.
So to see that first and then to see it in this, it's like, well, this is good, but I mean, it doesn't compare. It's the same way that I haven't seen Fast X, but there's a big car chase in Rome, and the car chase in Rome in Dead Reckoning is just astonishing action and fun and funny and well done. And I'm confident that, chasing Jason Momoa through Rome wasn't the same kind of thing. So this movie ended up being okay. I also think I had no expectations. I wasn't prepared for it to suck, but I had no expectations. When they said we're doing another Indiana Jones movie, and here comes Crystal Skull, I was with everybody else. Wow.
Yeah.
That's just wow. Because these movies, it's all the moments. Like, when you think of Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade, you don't think that was a good movie. You think of certain moments, probably many moments. Like I love when Indiana Jones takes that big jousting lance thing, and he throws it in the motorcycle of one of the Nazis, and he's so like proud of himself, and his dad's just glaring at him. I don't really have any moments like that out of this movie.
Yeah.
There really isn't anything, and it's got people that I love, like they waste Antonio Banderas, Mads Mikkelsen, like these great people, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, but there isn't anything that really stuck with me, and that is too bad. But I'm glad that you gave it a chance, John, because it is a goodbye to a character that is a huge part of all of our culture.
He didn't give it a chance. He had to do this. He wouldn't have done it if we didn't force him to do it.
But he still watched it. He could be sitting here saying I didn't watch it, because some people do that sometimes. They just
I've done it once.
Listen to
Okay,
a podcast or something.
I did it once. Okay, but I'm just saying that don't please. And Spielberg directed the Crystal Skull version, right?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Okay,
and it was very disappointing.
That's pretty much looked at as like would have been the worst in the franchise if it weren't for this. Or where's the order?
Okay, well, can I jump in on that?
Of course.
I would
Free
want
flow.
to say
Sean,
one,
this is free flow.
the best thing I have to say about this film is I thought it was better than Crystal Skull, which I saw in the theaters, and I was so disappointed with it. It just, ugh. And this film, the reviews were so bad that I stuck away. And this film lost a ton of money.
Yeah.
This was a monster flop. And so when I had no expectations coming in, Debbie watched it with me as well. And I thought the de-aging was much better than it was in The Irishman.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't really, the de-aging he didn't look weird.
It kept taking Debbie out of the movie. It kept taking her out, but
for this
I
one or
was
for The
willing to
Irishman?
buy it. To me, why the de-aging didn't work in The Irishman, which is the first film I think that really used the de-aging in a big way, is because, like De Niro, like when he was beating up the guy, like curb stomping him, you could tell his body and his actions were so old, but he had this like young face on him, It's like, did they also get rid of the walker or whatever on the, with the CGI? Now, I thought the train sequence was fine. I agree with everyone else. It should have started with the Beatles, him in that chair. And this film has a major problem that I think is endemic with movies now, and it's not woke. It is an overabundance of unnecessary conflict. And this has been particularly true of like Spielberg films, even ones he
I thought you were
produced,
going to say. I thought you were going to say fan.
Yeah, me
Fan-
too. Fan
Fan-
service,
fan
like
service.
a sequel.
That's what I
stuff.
thought.
No,
you were
I
gonna
mean
say.
fan service I think is important, but it's like
Important?
I remember when I saw 16 millimeter. It's an Abrams film that Spielberg produced, and it was just like there was so much plot. Like everybody
Is
had
that
to have a
is that a
backstory.
sequel to Super 8?
Yeah, Super 8
No.
or 16 millimeter. What are you talking
16 millimeter. It's about these kids who film a train crash.
about? Yeah, it's called
Yeah,
Super,
Super
8.
8.
Super 8.
Super 8.
A Super 8. Sorry, 16
Yeah.
millimeter. I said 16 millimeter. That's
You got
a
to down
different film.
convert that one. Right.
Yeah, but it was like there was just so much conflict in that movie, and then it was like War of the Worlds, which Spielberg directed, and he had to have all this conflict with his son. He's like an estranged father. I'm sitting there thinking, you know what? I love the 1953 version, and you know what? Everyone didn't have to hate each other. It was enough that we had all these aliens attacking to keep the movie interesting. And this is the same way with like Fleabag. I just like to call her that because I love that show. Didn't care for it. It's sort of like she has to be bad so there'll be more conflict with Indy, which made her character so inconsistent. But then they make her, what they call pet the dog or save the cat by having her have the, the short round knockoff, which is kind of unexplained. And I'm glad they didn't because everything in a movie does not have to be explained. But
True.
that should have been explained. And like the
Yeah, where was her?
CIA
Let me ask you a
character-
question, Sean. Where was
Yeah.
her come to Jesus moment in the film? Where did she
I
go
couldn't-
from? Where did she go from the person auctioning off all the antiquities and didn't care and all she wanted the money to I need to save this guy's legacy? Where was
Yeah.
that change in her when she saw Antonio Banderas get shot? Where did, as a screenwriter, where was that? Because I didn't see that.
I didn't see it, Frank.
Yeah.
That's what makes it terrible. And it's like, shouldn't it have been when they were having the big chase through the city? Maybe I don't know. What
Well, the whole scene on the boat, like those people, they just killed people. I mean, they did
Yeah.
the same thing at the Hunter College, right? They killed,
Yeah.
the couple of people who were the innocents who were there.
And she didn't care there that all those people were getting shot.
No,
and she
that's
was
what I mean.
escaping.
Where was I? That's what bothered me when I saw it the second time, was because I was when I saw it in the movie theater, I thought she was great. I liked her, right? But
Mm-hmm.
when I'm watching it again, I'm like, okay, where was the change? Because she was not good through the whole film, and then all of a sudden, it's not the kid.
And
that
not
she
only
was,
selling the antiquities, it's sort of like she's, pooping on her father's legacy.
A little bit,
by
a little
trying
bit.
to sell this whole thing too. And her godfather. It's like, oh, you left and you didn't call me, so I guess you can die or something. Like I haven't seen you in 20 years, so I don't care about you. And it just that's the central relationship in the film, and it doesn't work.
how many people
But I will
wrote this
say that
film?
I
Do we
was
know?
much more entertained by this film than I expected. And probably because I did not see it in the movie theater, so the special effects didn't bother me as much as
they were
would have
way
with other
worse
people.
watching streaming. Oh, it was horrible.
And I'm just like John. It's like every time they'd hint that Indiana Jones theme, something just pulls you right back in.
Right.
But to me, here's the way I would rate them: the first film, the third film,
Yeah.
and then a huge drop off to the second film. But then this one, and then the Crystal Skull one, and part of it is it's like I like it when he goes after real mysterious items. Like I don't think there is this Archimedes. I didn't look it up. Dial of Destiny, and there were quote unquote crystal skulls, but apparently they were totally fake and that they were created in Germany at the end of the the 19th century. So they were not like these Aztec or real things. But I mean, there is a real Ark of the Covenant, and there probably the what do you call it? The Holy Grail is basically medieval mythology, but there was something he drank out of. So I mean, it's like I prefer like a little sense of real history. And another thing that disappointed me, and you really shouldn't review a film by saying the film should have been this, but I would have been much more amused if they had gotten back to Archimedes like midpoint, and then you have this like King Arthur, Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court, with Indiana Jones and these people like helping them a bit, and then before they have to take off. To me, that would have been, because I really liked the Roman stuff, and the Syracuse and stuff, but it was just so hinted at that it was, it was hardly worth it.
Well, here's the writers: Jez Butterworth, John Henry Butterworth, and others. That's how it's listed on IMDb.
I think Fleabag wrote this part of this film too.
Wow.
If I'm not mistaken,
she may have polished it.
I mean,
She
was the
certainly-
idea? I know there was some talk about a
writer.
sequel, that she was going to be the next whatever, but did they really think that she was going to be the next
Yes.
Indiana Jones?
Yeah.
I don't know if they did, because they said that explicitly. Like, Harrison Ford is passing the torch to Shia LaBeouf in this last movie where he's Indiana Jones, and that didn't happen. Nobody wanted it to happen. It didn't work. So I felt like this was Harrison Ford, thank you and goodbye, far more than who he might or might not be passing the torch on to. If they wanted to make another movie that's like Indiana Jones, well, there have been 100 of those since Raiders of the Lost Ark, and some of them are good and some of them aren't. But I didn't feel like, which was kind of refreshing actually, I didn't feel like they were setting up, and here's the new trilogy, with Phoebe Waller-Bridge or whatever. I thought that was good. This was a big swing. It didn't make that kind of money that they wanted it to make, but it was, I think, aimed the right way to say
Let me
goodbye.
ask you guys
And I
this.
think it's amazing that Harrison Ford came back and did any of these characters. Like he said, I won't be in the new Star Wars unless you kill me. And it's like, well, but then you come back as a ghost if they throw enough money at you. And I'm not faulting him for that.
Yeah.
But I don't see how they could make another one of these movies with him that anybody would want to watch.
So that last scene, the very last shot where the iris goes down on the hat,
They pull the hat in.
would it have been better if it just went on the hat and that was it? Or did we need that pulling it into the apartment? It's like, okay, I'm still... Because they had
That's what
just
I
had
I
that...
like that he's alive.
They
and
just had
he's-
that beautiful scene where they're kissing the elbow and
Right.
she's back, she's sniffing his ear, she's that whole thing was kind of nice. As an old guy, I'm like, okay, I love that. And then they had to show, I get why they did it, right? Because you don't want to end on them getting ice cream, his Egyptian friend, and all these, let's get ice cream, kids, while they're... But why pull the hat
I
back
like ice
into the...
cream.
Why pull the hat back into the... Why? Can somebody...
That
Sean,
maybe-
as a
maybe-
writer, why? Why would you do that?
Maybe he embraced, it was his way of saying he's back, not for adventure, but he would, listen, and this is something
Why
I
not
hate.
take the hat and throw it out the window?
No, because no.
Well, because he's not saying goodbye to the part of him. He's saying, I may be done going on adventures,
But I'm not
I may be done with
renouncing
all
it.
these things, but the part of me that wants that is still there. It's still part of who I am.
Right.
And I thought that was nice. Like if they had left the hat there, I wouldn't be sitting here saying, "Oh, that they should have done more." But they did a little bit more, and I like what they did with it.
I mean, he was a broken man. I mean, that's what they were showing at the beginning of the movie, and
And now
that
he's
was,
not broken.
That that was his.
Well,
way.
he's physically more broken.
But I will say, and if it comes out, I hope it will come out. And we've talked about this before, and some of you dispute it. But I watch a bunch of podcasts where they talk about this. And the original ending, I told you what it was.
What?
And they actually shot it where he disappears from time. It didn't end the way this movie ended. And she now becomes Indiana Jones, because if he goes back to the past, he disappears. So she takes over the mantle. So the intent was for her to take over, not as Indiana Jones, but a similar character like that, which I think would have been ridiculous. And when that got out
Actually, I kind of like that.
yeah, well, people didn't, and that's why they reshot
People,
it.
you
Now,
mean
I
people.
would say I would
People.
rather see a
Fans.
reboot with like a Ryan
Well,
Gosling or
it wouldn't
Chris
be
Pratt.
fans. It would have
I
been
think
the
that would
people
be
who saw the
great.
previews.
Wasn't
What?
Chris Pratt in line to be the next Indiana Jones?
Well, they talked about it a few years ago before this one
Before
came out.
Passengers, when he did Passengers, and
Because Harrison
What a
Ford said he
wonderful
was not
movie.
going to come back and do it because they couldn't get a good enough script. So this is the one was good enough.
well, look,
Well, we know. I tell you what, we have no idea what the original script was like.
Right.
At least none of us read it. The original script may have been much better than what we saw here. Scripts don't always change. Usually, when you have 52 people making suggestions and trying to fix things, and you're going into market analysis, that usually doesn't lead to an improved script. So my guess is that it's probably worse than what it was. You know, this is probably worse.
Well, to Chris's point, it was too long. I mean, it was not
Yeah.
a tight film. And even the second
Chris, you're
one,
on mute.
even the second one, which I like because there are action pieces in it that are fantastic, like on the bridge. But even that's tight. This was not tight. It was just meandering. And Chris is right. A lot of the chase scenes, which I actually like, went on way too long. And
I
if they
think
cut that down, it would have tightened everything up, I think.
Yeah, there's really no need for a 2 hour and 40-minute Indiana Jones movie. I mean, I think you could have.
They forgot what it's supposed to be about.
2:15 I can handle, but like you said, I mean, I don't even think any of the other ones crack two, maybe a minute or two longer than 2 hours. But I mean, and that's part of the fun of the original is the
Right.
propulsive nature of it, how it just, and some people criticize it because it is just boom, 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 set piece, set piece, set piece with, little interludes in the middle, But yeah, sorry about that, guys. I had to take care of something in my basement.
Oh, I bet.
Like we mentioned, there's a lot of rain here right now. Luckily, nothing critical at this point, at least.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
I
see,
hope you
one
don't
thing
get
I think this
electrocuted.
movie, I mean, the Antikythera is a real thing that has been discovered, and we don't really know what the Greeks used it for. It was very advanced. It may have been used to, astrology or
I
to
think it
map
was-
things or whatever. We don't really know. But that's the same problem. It's not what makes or breaks the movies, but that's the same problem 3 of the Indiana Jones movies have. The Raiders of the Lost Ark, you know what the Ark is. The Holy Grail, you know what the Holy Grail is. The other ones, I mean, there's a reason that it's an inferior copy, but you didn't have to explain to me what the significance of a treasure map on the back of the Declaration of Independence meant in National Treasure, because
Yeah.
everybody knows what the Declaration of Independence is. And even if you have never seen the exhibit, well, that's got to be locked up somewhere.
Right.
And he's saying we have to steal it. And, you sort of, that's a direct copy of what they've done with the Indiana Jones movies as far as everybody knows what it is. And even if you don't know, like, I'm not Christian, so I didn't grow up with the story of the Holy Grail, but I know what the Grail is.
Yeah.
I know what these various artifacts and relics are. It's just part of world culture. And the stones, I think Shannara,
Wait, before you saw Raiders of the
whatever the
Lost
stones
Ark?
were in Temple of Doom. I don't remember what they're called. I haven't seen that movie in years.
but-
That
but
might
wait,
be something real. I don't
Let me
know.
ask you a question. Before Raiders of the Lost Ark, you guys all knew what the Ark of the Covenant was?
Yeah.
Yes.
Jesus, Ralph, didn't you go to
Oh, I guess
Catholic
I'm
school?
I didn't. I was no. I guess I did, but I didn't pay attention.
I knew
By
what
the way,
other-
Raiders of the Lost
Yeah, I
Ark
went to Hebrew
is
school.
the shortest of all the films. Just under 2 hours. They were all. This was the longest of all of them. 2 hours and
Felt
30
it.
minutes, which is
Yeah, and it felt it.
Yeah.
that's what I mean.
I don't know. I thought I was still in the theater watching Crystal Skull, too. I mean, that one felt abominably long.
But even that
Wait
one,
till you
even-
watch
even
Mughal
that one-
Azam.
Even that one, I thought, did a better job of addressing his age. Obviously, he wasn't 80 years old, but he was. I think he was. That was set in the 50s, so he probably would have been in his 60s or so. And he even acknowledged, like when he jumped on the truck, boy, that used to be a lot easier, or whatever it was. I thought they did a better job of that. Now, the getting in the refrigerator was ridiculous. I mean, that was just the dumbest thing in the world. And that was first of all, Spielberg did not want to make that movie. He wanted to make Indiana Jones in Atlantis. George Lucas was the one that insisted on doing the Crystal Skull, and Spielberg talks about it to this day that he thinks it was a mistake. But there were things in this movie. It's one thing for the Nazis to go killing people and that kind of stuff. Other than the guy, and this is the complaint of the second movie, that it was too violent for kids.
Yeah.
The way the dismissive killing of innocent people in this movie, like at the school, and even Antonio Banderas's character, I don't know, something about that bothered me a little bit. It
should
had a
bother you 'cause
little.
it was- yeah.
I don't know how to describe it, but it was just seemed like look, they kill people in all those movies, but that it just seemed a little bit different. Like is that something Spielberg would have done? Because even he says he made big mistakes with the second movie. I don't think he would have, and it definitely didn't have, and he shouldn't, because it's Mangold and he's trying to put his own stamp on it. but stuff like that, pulled me out of it more. Like, this really isn't an Indiana Jones movie. It's got hints of it, but it's really not. The whole tone of it, you don't really care about any of the characters in it other than Indy, and frankly, Karen Allen at the end.
Yeah.
That was the sweetest connection with characters. Even Sala, who I love, was a waste. He was there, and Antonio Banderas, who's good. You think, oh, he's got a new ally in Antonio Banderas. Boom, he's got like
Yeah,
five.
I didn't even know he was in the movie.
Dead.
Yeah, it's like, what the hell did you pick? I love it. Why Antonio
Keep talking.
Banderas
I got
for
something to
that?
deal with.
You got something to deal with?
Yeah, I got to pee.
So this is the new free-flowing forum, huh, Ralph?
Yeah, there's a lot of
But,
flowing going on.
Yeah.
Well, keep in mind, I mean, casual murder is, I would call it a Nazi hallmark.
Yeah.
So those characters consistently in the movies, and it turns out in real life,
Yeah.
they will just plow through people that are we would look at and say that's an innocent victim. When Temple of Doom came out, most people in the audiences in this country, they don't know, including me at I don't know, what was I, 8 or 9 or something.
Buggies.
Well, yeah, they don't know about Kali, and they don't know about the Tuggy, which was called a cult in the movie, which was very upsetting to people who actually are Indian and know about these things. And never mind that whole really ridiculous meal of, look at these foreign people eating brains and eyeballs and all
Monkey
that
brain.
nonsense. But I mean, the thing is, I mean, to me, the biggest betrayal of that movie is that you take a character like Marion Ravenwood in the first movie, and then you take a character like Kate Capshaw screaming for help the entire movie. And I was like, I thought we weren't doing that. Because remember, the whole movie, Raiders of the Lost Ark, these are the serials.
Right.
These are the cliffhangers. These
right.
are the junk that's really fun. But we're going to do it with like real Hollywood money and world-class craftsmanship and all that kind of stuff. This one didn't feel like that. I think the Crystal Skull, they probably should have gone really more with aliens, because everybody knows the gray aliens. I mean, even Spielberg's made movies about them, and they could have been more like a 50s sci-fi movie, like explicitly so.
Right.
The way that the first movies were like 30s action serial movies.
throwback
And
to
I
the
don't know what this new one, what it really is.
Yeah.
Well, with the black CIA agent, it's sort of like they're touching on blaxploitation. Similarly, she would have fit easily in a film from 1971.
She looked great.
She was a great character, and I was sorry to see
Yeah.
her go, because she had a
It's
lot
sort
of
of like, why did
personality,
they
and she
make
seemed
her so
conflicted about what
interesting?
was happening, and that
Yeah.
was important. So.
Speaking of what just
They should have
happened,
kept
I
her in
mean,
longer. It was a waste
Indy
of
did
time.
hardly peed in this movie. You figure a guy that old would be peeing all the time.
He probably was. Were you
think
checking
about
the
it.
pants?
Right. All right. So, I don't know. What's the rating on this one? The Yippee-Ki-Yay. Yippee-Ki-Yay or Yippee-Ki-Nay? Are we back to that?
Very weak, Yippee-Ki-Yay. Very weak.
So you're giving it a Ki-Yay. You're up.
Yeah, I'm gonna do
yeah.
the same thing. I'm still gonna give it a Yippee-Ki-Yay, but a pretty tepid one, mostly because you could have cut a solid 30 minutes out of this thing.
Oh, yeah,
and it
100%.
It would have clicked, and the funny thing is like you literally could have kept every scene. I mean, I think you needed to lose at least one of those like set pieces, but you could have kept every scene and just trimmed it down, and it would have clipped along much faster than it did. And I really, I was never a huge fan of Short Round, and I'm even less of a fan of Teddy. He doesn't even have a good, dumb, somewhat racist nickname, right?
Yeah, right.
It's not even like a good, dumb nickname.
He had a good mustache, though, for an 11-year-old.
This is true.
That was solid.
But do you think they were like, the idea was those two were going to be a team? Her character.
Well, I
and his
think
character?
that was her short round.
Mhm.
That's what I'm talking about. That their intent was to go forward. He was going to be
And
along-
like with the old boyfriend there, the boyfriend with the knife, the guy.
Well, he was a gangster that she.
I
was
understand, because in the original movies, Indiana Jones had all this weird history too, right? He had people that were always coming after him all the time.
Yeah,
so-
but it was always about going after antiquities,
Yeah.
not the black market. And she was a con artist too. She talked about the marks. That's what I mean. We talk about how long this movie was. Well, you would think in a 2-hour and 40-minute movie there'd be more character development than there was in this movie. There was no character development with anybody other than Indiana Jones.
Well, he didn't need character development.
He did, because it was a different look. And this is my complaint, and this is the last thing I'll say about this. Disney, or whoever writes these, they've taken three characters
Others wrote this.
who I love and made them angry, depressed. They did it to Luke Skywalker. They did it to Han Solo. And now they did it with Indiana Jones. And I
Because
don't understand why.
Life is hard. Life sucks. Things, you know,
Okay.
you can't, everything can't
We
be.
go to the movies to avoid that.
Crystal
That's true.
Skull.
Not
That's true.
everyone does.
Crystal
Yeah,
Skull
I do.
in his
Lately.
60, he marries Marion Ravenwood, right? His love, his true love. And that's the stamp on Indiana Jones.
Who gets married in their 60s?
Well, now he's
Oh, wait.
divorced.
Oh, I
his
did.
kid's dead. He's a broken man, and it's like that's not the Indiana Jones that fans want to see. That's not who they want to see. They don't want to see that. They want
I
to see
love seeing. You know what my favorite scene in the film was when he goes down to the hippies and he wears that
Yeah,
Chicago
with the
Cubs
bat.
shirt backwards. He had the
Yeah.
T-shirt on backwards, and I was like, okay, that's funny.
That's a man
you know,
60s who's not married,
yeah, exactly.
who has a wife.
Yeah, and he gives the clock away. You know, he's walking down.
But
the street, he
I'll
hands the
never
clock.
see this movie again. So this was
No,
a
I
gift.
don't. Listen, I don't want to watch it again either.
And I've never watched Crystal Skull again. I've only watched that one because I thought that was.
I've
horrible.
only seen the first part of that with the refrigerator.
Ugh, terrible. That
I haven't
was
seen
awful.
any of that. All right,
But there was
so
some good scenes in that
I'm going to
film.
say, listen, I'm going to say Yippee-Ki-Yay just because of on the strength of Harrison Ford, and I did like the time travel aspect of it. I love time travel stuff, right down to the watches and all the stuff that they do. But you know, it's my second viewing of this. I was much more cynical about it than when I saw it in the movie theater.
Sure.
So, and I don't know
I
if
want to
that's
say I just learned something that was bothering me that the Stones. This is how small a world we live in. The Stones in Temple of Doom, they call them the Sankara stones.
Yeah.
And there are those stones with the 3 stripes on them,
Yeah.
and they bring prosperity, et cetera, et cetera. Those are not a real thing in India. However, I've just learned that they are a deliberately designed reference to the lingam. We know what the lingam is in our movie podcast here because that's what Bahubali picked up and put in the bottom of the falls in the first Bahubali movie, which is a large round rock on a disc with 3 stripes that his mother was supposed to pour water over and over, and he just said, "I'll just put it in the water." So
Yeah.
all these movies, have references to different things, but I think they probably said, well, we are not Indian, so we're not going to do a real thing, but they came up with some stuff that people would recognize, which I thought was kind of neat. And Yippee-Ki-Yay.
And speaking of that, don't the Indian audience hate the depiction of
Yes,
what goes
That's
on
the
in that
impression
film?
I've always gotten,
Yeah.
is that it's insulting and weird.
they have
and I
told
don't
us
blame
that
them.
in the comment section about that
Yeah.
film.
Yeah.
So.
I can
All right.
understand.
Anybody want to
Yeah.
say anything
Yeah.
else about this film before we move on to who picks the next film, and then we do a little "What'd you watch"?
Rest in peace, Indiana Jones.
Yes.
I hope he does.
Yeah. All right. So let's
He's earned it.
let's see who's going to pick the next film. John has a theory about how this might work, but let's see. Okay, here we go. And we're going to spin. Stand by. Oh, I'm spinning the wrong thing. I can't see.
Chris thought he was going to bag out.
I'll try.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Shit. That's John. Son of a bitch. Well,
Bring on the furry feet.
what's the deal
Okay,
here?
so here's the deal. Okay, Chris and Drew, you have to be on board with this.
I am.
Ralph hadn't seen any of the Lord of the Rings movies.
Listen out.
If I pick the first one, Fellowship of the Rings, will you guys pick the other 2?
I will if you agree that we should all do the extended editions.
I don't have
Absolute-
the extended.
I don't know if I have
edition.
the extended.
They're all on HBO Max, and
Yeah,
if you don't have them, I
okay.
can make a copy of
All the
them.
No,
extended
they're on
editions
HBO
are
Max,
HBO
okay.
Max. Yes.
I got them in my Plex. I just haven't watched them.
Will you guys agree to that, Chris and Drew?
100%.
Why can't
What
I
about
agree?
Sean? Why are you leaving Sean out?
Oh, I didn't know because I didn't know if he was a big Lord of the Rings fan like the other guys. I know they were.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
All right.
whoever gets picked for the next 2, you'll pick the second 2 movies.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
one other thing, though. Whoever comes up fourth, after we've done the 3 movies, you
Not
do
The
not pick The Hobbit.
Yeah.
You do not do
no.
that.
That
do that.
sucked.
So
Unless
what you're
it's the
saying is, are you saying
Rankin Bass Hobbit.
Are you
Well, that
saying
one's okay.
I have to watch this film?
You got to watch 3 of them.
3 of them.
I pick
You just
Fellowship.
our viewership just went in the toilet.
Fellowship of the
I'm just
Rings.
kidding.
We'll see.
And then-
These might be the hits we've
Good
been waiting
choice.
for.
Yeah.
Fellowship of the Ring extended and no watching recaps. You have to watch.
I'll watch the film. I got
with
them on
their
my
furry
Plex.
feet.
I got.
It's actually really, it's terrific.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful
I'm
movies.
sure it's fantastic.
Fellowship, it's so funny because like I know everybody kind of looks down on the Two Towers. That's actually
I love it. It's my favorite one.
that's my favorite one. I feel like a lot of middle chapters of trilogies. I feel like it's got a lot of strong.
Okay,
action.
tell me the order. What's the order here?
Fellowship.
of the Ring,
Two Towers,
Two
Return
Towers, Return of the King.
of the King.
And
How
if you're not
soon-
sure,
how
you can look
soon
at
in this
the years of
trilogy-
release.
Just tell me, how soon does Sean Bean get killed in the trilogy?
First movie.
He what he does, he slips on one of the Hobbit's furry feet, hits his head, and so it's pretty quick.
He
It
bangs
happens
his head.
pretty quick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does he get shot in the shoulder and he doesn't know where he is and he wakes up and he's in a bed and everything's fine?
Well,
No, he
it-
gets punched in the face by Phoebe Waller-Bridge and wakes up in New York. It's crazy.
All right,
smart,
so there we go.
Just successful woman.
So it's Fellowship of the Rings is the first one.
Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
Cannot
Extended
wait.
edition.
Extended edition.
Here's why, 'cause one of our-
because there's 28 minutes you don't want to miss.
One of our past participants of our podcast, Darcy Wilkins. I don't know if you remember Darcy.
Yeah.
She brought Waterworld to the table.
Yeah.
And we had a running deal that if I ever watch the Lord of the Rings trilogy, she will watch the Godfather trilogy.
She's never watched The Godfather?
Nope.
Wait, you're going to make her watch Godfather 3? That's not.
Listen, yes, she has to watch all three.
That's mean.
I like
I haven't
Godfather
seen the
3.
third one.
I like Godfather 3. So
Oh,
I have to
God.
give her a call. We may bring her on the show at the end of the
Nice.
my trilogy.
That's really
so.
free flowing. So next week is the Indian movie. The following week is Lord of the Ring.
Correct.
Okay. So 3.5 hour movie Chris probably won't be here for.
Well, it's only 3.5 hours if you can get it in black and white, which we can't.
Chris,
it's
that
like
is a
2
good
hours
week.
and 50 some minutes in color.
okay.
So.
If you're going to miss a week, this might be the week. But Wolverine,
Wolverine would be
would be
very-
very upset if you were not here.
He loves
I
Chris.
am going
grumpy
to do my
bear.
level best to get this movie in.
The
can
sooner
always-
I get it, the higher chance that I'll see.
Listen, you got a
see it.
long ride up to Connecticut, so
Can we
Yeah,
do
but
it Wednesday
I-
night, Ralph, instead of Tuesday?
I do the driving.
we could do it Wednesday night. Yes, for Chris. Yes, we would do it Wednesday.
Would one
night.
extra
don't
day
know
help
if
you?
No,
I
he's-
have to check my calendar.
He's got a lot to do. He's very busy. So
I have to check my calendar. I have kind of a. I have a
Could-
thing.
let me ask
that
you
takes
this.
3 out of 4 Wednesdays a month. Let me
okay,
put it
could
that
you watch it on your trip up and do a vlog?
You
a
can't
video
watch
blog?
that on the phone.
way. I have to
too big?
drive. That's.
Oh.
You cannot watch
That
that.
doesn't
I drive
sound
and
right.
watch them. I don't know what you're. What do you mean?
I mean,
All right.
I'm not going to lie to you. Some of this is going to have to be on the phone if I'm in Connecticut.
Oh, yeah.
Here we go.
Like,
All right.
there's no-
So we'll see what happens. All right. What'd you watch? Let's start. Let's make this quick because
Oh, I'm watching Satanic
This free
Ralph
flow
in that
goes along.
corner, man. What's up with your lighting? It's very
My
sharp.
light fell. I did the best I could. This is
Oh,
what it is.
nice.
All right. So Drew, what'd you watch? One thing, Drew. One.
So I've been starting to catch up on some of these movies that are up for awards. I watched the Golden Globes. That was its own kind of disaster. But
Yeah, it didn't hold.
this week I watched 2 movies that I had the opposite expected reaction to. I watched Maestro, which I think is so handsomely mounted, dreadful, boring mess of a movie, and I don't see it getting Bradley what he wants to get, even though I think he's a wonderful filmmaker and Carey Mulligan is wonderful. I also watched Saltburn, which is Emerald
yeah.
Fennell's movie
It
from
didn't hold my
She Did Promise
attention. I
Me a
tried to
Woman.
watch it. I went 20 minutes into it yesterday. Just
Not even the
didn't.
tub
Yeah,
scene.
It
The tub
doesn't.
scene
Really, yeah,
didn't do
that's the one. It doesn't really have anything to say. It's kind of like a talented Mr. Ripley, but with more cum. And I think it wasn't great, but it did hold our attention, and we watched it, and it makes some interesting creative choices as far as how it's shot in the 4:3 aspect ratio, which usually I find distracting. But the biggest thing for me, honestly, at the end of the day, was the cast is unbelievable. And I loved watching Richard E. Grant and Carey Mulligan and Rosamund Pike and Barry Keoghan, and it's just such a weird, trashy kind of movie that if you want something surprisingly fun, if you can stomach some of it, then Saltburn's what I would recommend. But Maestro was so boring. Kelly tapped out after half an hour, and I finished it the next day, and it was just a slog, and that was disappointing.
Wow.
It's a pity because I heard so much good stuff from critics about it. But
Yeah,
well,
people
About
are raving
Maestro?
about it. Yeah.
Maestro.
Oh no,
right, so,
it's
could be wrong.
Saltburn.
Sean, what'd you watch?
Well, I've been watching Invasion on Apple Plus, season 1, and it really, I mean, I love alien invasion movies, but this one, the characters, it's like, for long stretches, it's like nothing is happening, and I finally got to episode 10. It's like, it was a struggle for me, but I'm sitting there thinking, well, I'm going to get rid of my Apple Plus, so I might as well finish it. And I did like the last episode. Now I'm thinking, well, am I going to jump into season 2? It just didn't. It wasn't Independence Day. Let's put it that way. Maybe that's a good thing, but
Probably.
10 episodes of this, and coy as it is, it just didn't hold together for me.
Joe Coy.
Yeah, Joe. Oh, don't even talk about Joe Coy.
Who is that person? I never heard of that person.
Debbie heard
He's a
about it. She's like,
successful
oh, Joe
stand-up.
Coy's. Yeah, she's like, Joe Coy's doing it. I'm like, oh, okay.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
Chris.
Right.
So I saw the first about 15 minutes of The Unbearable Lightness of Being, and then I started to fall asleep. I actually read that. No, here's the thing: is I actually read that book during the pandemic, and I've been meaning to catch up with the film, but it is never streaming anywhere.
What talented Mr. Ripley?
You had never seen it?
No, I've never seen it. And so I read the book, and like I said, during the pandemic, never seen it, and all of a sudden it showed up under the recent editions section on Canopy, and I got super excited. And then I went to go watch it again, to start it over and sit down and watch it. It's almost 3 hours too. Yeah, and it's not there anymore. So I'm like really kind of like, all right, maybe I'll just have to break down and rent it for $3 or whatever.
I think I have that one on Laserdisc. Come over here.
Wait,
I have
Chris,
it
it's
on,
not. It's
I
not
love
what
that
did.
film,
I think.
It's not what didn't you watch. It's what you watched.
Well,
That's
I
okay.
watched the first 15 minutes and I was enjoying it.
That's
you know?
Lena
Like,
Olin. That's an early Lena Olin film.
Yeah.
In a bowler hat, yeah.
Yeah. In underwear.
Exactly.
Nice.
Yes.
Who's
But
the male
that was
actor in
better.
that one? Who's the
sorry,
guy?
what?
Who's the male actor? Who's the actor that's?
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Oh, it is. That's what I mean. It's early. That's early for him as
Yeah,
well.
it's a really kind of early Daniel Day-Lewis one. And
Yeah, I have that on Laserdisc. Come on over. We'll do a little meeting
God,
and
here
have
we go.
watch
Nice.
that movie.
Format of the
Oh.
show's
It
going
up.
to change.
All right, John, what did you watch?
I watched the final season of Ted Lasso,
Okay.
which I had not seen, and the third season was the weakest of the three. I will say that the last episode I really, really liked. It was a fitting ending to that show, but it did get me to. I rewatched the first season, which I think is absolutely brilliant. I love the show, and the guy who plays Roy Kent, Brett Goldstein. I knew nothing about him. I didn't know he was a stand-up comedian. He was a writer on the show that auditioned for the show by sending them a videotape of him doing Roy Kent, and he goes, "If you don't like this, just pretend I never sent it to you." And he's one of the best characters in the show. But the reason why I really like the show, it's about mental health, and it takes a serious look at that. But it's also, his character is one of the most optimistic, genuinely optimistic characters in all of TV at a time when cynicism runs throughout TV. I love that. And the footballers were great. The woman who plays the owner is wonderful. Juno Temple is great. The whole show is really great. But I finally watched the third season, and again, it made me watch the first one again. So if you haven't seen Ted Lasso,
He's great. Jason Sudeikis is. I really like him.
well, have you watched the YouTube of his original commercials for?
No, I know. He was a completely different
for
version
10
of
years
that,
ago.
Right.
It's hilarious because
Right.
he's a moron.
Right.
So they took it but
Yeah, but
there's
even-
the seeds of it are still, and the guy who plays the coach is his buddy who co-wrote the show with him. I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah.
They've had a long relationship with each other. I never knew that.
Yeah.
So that was
I,
kinda-
I like him. I like We the Millers and all the stuff he
Excellent.
does. He's funny.
It's a great
All right,
show.
so I'll be quick because this went on forever. I watched a documentary on YouTube, which I didn't even know was there forever. It's called Attack of the Doc, which is a documentary about G4's Attack of the Show. Did you guys ever see the Attack of the Show back in the day?
Sure.
Yeah.
Attack
With,
of the
Mike-
show.
Yeah, with I don't know, Priera and Olivia Munn.
Something
yeah.
my kids are into, John.
Yeah, it was it was when they were huge with Comic-Con. I mean, they were early video games.
Yeah, I'm familiar with
reviews,
G4.
DVD reviews, right? G4.
Yeah.
The only Maxim magazine I've ever saved is the Olivia Munn Maxim magazine. She was smoking. Is still smoking. She's great. As an actress and as, that. So it's a great doc on YouTube. It's free on YouTube called Attack of the Doc. All about how G4 started and what their influence was on.
And didn't
video
they come
games
back and
stuff.
they were like a flop?
It obviously it died.
It died because someone came out and accused them all of being sexist and went after the fans for wanting scantily clad women on that show, which is how it started with Olivia Munn and those guys. And it was a female, one of the female hosts went off on the fans, and it crashed. It burned them.
Well, that's
killed the channel.
What are they? Anyway, the doc. Watch the doc. Okay.
Does it go into that?
I didn't. I missed the last 10 minutes because I was busy. But
Because he was watching Indiana Jones.
no, I doubt this documentary is going to go into why it failed.
Because that was relatively recent.
This was all about the guys who are hyping themselves up as the geniuses who created it. And believe me, they created a movement. It was good.
Yeah.
But anyway, so check that one out. All right. So next week we're doing, Drew, what's the film?
It's called Mughal-e-Azam. from
Brought to us by
1960.
Wolverine, one of our favorite.
That's our Indian
Wolverine
Cinemaniacs films.
She is fantastic. Chris
she is.
may or may not be on that show, but that's okay.
But everything I can.
And
Hey,
then
we have
Chris said-
Wolverine on it?
Chris did say if you subscribe, hit the notification button, hit the like button, and share this, he might make a point to be on it. And he might have recovered from his brain damage from falling
insane.
on.
It's true.
it's like a map. He's got a map on his face.
You look
I
like
forgot.
He
Did
looked like
Batman? Did
Gorbachev.
Batman
Who's the
put
Russian
that-
leader that had the birthmark?
Gorbachev.
Gorbachev. Did you hear the big Star Wars news today?
What?
So Jon Favreau will be directing a movie, even as he's developing the 4th season of The Mandalorian. He's going to be writing and directing a movie about The Mandalorian and Grogu, and it's called The Mandalorian and Grogu.
Wait a minute.
I hope that's a
What's it
working
gonna be
title.
about?
but
That's gold,
Nobody
Jared.
knows.
Gold.
They just
Genius.
announced it, and there's like 3 Star Wars movies scheduled for release in 2025, 6, and 7. This isn't one of those, so who knows? These movies come and go. But I really hope they come up with a better title.
Man, they really flooded the market and really
I hope they come out with a
destroyed
good
that
movie.
franchise.
They're coming out with
Yeah.
a Ray movie. Like, that's what anybody wants after
Yeah, a
that.
good movie would be nice.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Just one would
I
be
just
nice.
want to say this. I love Disney. All right. So see you guys next week. Have a good week. And
That was free flowing right there. baby.
Keep watching film. Okay.